Hey everyone, Dave from Basic Bushcraft. Welcome to part 3 of my knife making series, making a knife by hand. Today I'm going to be showing you my filing jig and we're going to be creating the bevel onto my knife. Okay, so here's my filing jig. It's pretty basic and I just used the tools that I had available and the hardware that I had available to me to create the filing jig. I have a very simple file that's single cut on this side, which is what I'll be using. And I attached it to this long kind of square bar, which I think it was originally used for a long flathead screwdriver, where the handle would be somewhere like here. So it just gives me just enough extra reach to be able to do a filing motion with it. And basically how this guide works is that this eye up here will basically keep your file at a constant angle and create a constant angle on your bevel. Golf Customs did a lot better version of this filing jig, but in reality, all that you really need for a filing jig is to make sure that your angle is constant. So you could potentially just rest this against a piece of wood or something like that. As long as your file angle is completely constant, you should be fine. And I did attach it with hose clamps, and then I taped it over with electrical tape because it's quite uncomfortable when your hand is on these hose clamps. The hose clamps aren't comfortable, so electrical tape is a good idea to put it over. And I had attached it to a 2x4. I drilled 2 holes here for the actual eye, and I found that I needed to have it quite close to my actual setup just because of the length of the bar that my file is attached to is quite small for this type of a setup. I didn't want to go and purchase anything. I wanted to use the stuff that I had laying around to make my filing jig, so that's why I ended up with what I did. A couple holes here for a screw to go into, and basically that screw, all it's there for is to stop the knife from going this way. Because when you're filing, all of your force is going this way. Even if you have it clamped here, your knife will want to go that way. So the screw is quite essential actually to a filing jig. A closer look at the stop bolt here that I made for the actual jig itself. I have a nut on top here, and I have this little metal casing that was basically just some sort of a pipe or something like that I hacksawed to size. And what that does is it actually prevents the file from wearing away at your stop bolt. Because it kind of moves around freely, since your file does have the capability to file on the corners here, you'll eventually start wearing away at your bolt. So I made the precaution of having this sleeve around it just so it won't wear away at the bolt too much. I have the capability of moving the bolt from that hole to that hole, and I just have to unscrew it and screw it in there. Same with this thing. This thing is screwed in, so I can change the height to give myself different angles of the bevel itself. I've tried to have an angle set up of about 10 degrees, and there's a reason for that. This is the most accurate thing I have to read the degree that my bevel is going to be. So Scandinavian grinds typically range between 15 degrees and 22 degrees as far as the whole blade is concerned. That's what I looked up online. I read that depending on what style and type of blade that you're making, the Scandinavian grind is between 15 degrees and 22 degrees. I think most most bushcraft knives nowadays have 22 degrees as an angle. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I have this angle set up where it's sitting on the blade. It's sitting at 10 degrees. So because it's half of the angle of what the actual total bevel is going to be, 10 degrees is going to be one side, 10 degrees is going to be the other side. But I also figure when you file away, the degrees should go a little bit bigger. So I'm thinking it might vary within a degree or two of 10 degrees, and I'm okay with that because I'm not this process is not going to be like totally accurate because I don't have the means to measure this angle totally accurately, but I basically will get a bevel somewhere between 18 and 22 degrees. I think that it's going to be more roughly 20, 21 degrees at the total angle of the bevel, and that's totally fine with me. Okay, so to know how far I actually need to and where the center line of the metal is, I'm going to do what everyone does online. Basically, they color the area where your bevel is going to be, and then they mark it with a drill bit of the same size. So you basically take your felt pen, you color the end of your knife there, and then you take the equivalent size drill bit and you basically scribe a line on it. What I actually noticed, and I noticed this on Simple Little Life's channel, is that the 1/8 drill bit is slightly smaller than 1/8 of this stock here. So what's going to happen is you're going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a line this way, and then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to draw a line this way. So I'll end up having two lines, and somewhere in the middle of that line is going to be the dead center. You might be able to tell there that the drill bit is slightly smaller. So here we go, just marking off the line. Okay, so I have my knife jig set up, and I have it extended out from the work surface, basically clamped down by at one of those F clamps. And then I actually have the knife clamped down with a tiny C clamp with a bit of a rag just to make sure it's not too scuffed up. And I kind of have a general line of where I want the plunge to be. This filing jig setup, I don't have a lot of room to be doing long, powerful strokes. So in a way, it's kind of nice because I have to be, slow and like a little bit more accurate with my things. I can't just go and take massive strokes and take lots of metal. So this process will probably take quite a long time. So this is basically how I'm going to be starting. I got my hand up here, and I kind of have to sit angled towards it so it's comfortable for me. And then start filing that bevel. So you can also do the draw filing technique where you kind of come across the blade like that, or you kind of come into your stop bolt like that, and it will create kind of a lengthways file pattern on your knife here. But it's another way of removing material when you're using your knife jig, your filing jig, is that you can draw a file and kind of even things up. So progress is going pretty good. I'm managing to get a pretty even bevel all the way along. I'm finding that if I don't clean out my file, I get big chunks of metal that take out gouges in the bevel itself. So I'm getting pretty close to my line here, almost right to my line. So I'm actually just using the draw filing, really slow draw filing technique, just to try to even out the bevel and go slow. So this is the last part. I want this to have a nice sharp line all the way up into the plunge. The bevel itself is turning out quite nicely. You can kind of see that I just need to clean up that line a little bit, maybe take a little bit more material out of here, and then this side should be done, and we'll work on the next side. To basically line up, I put that little mark there where my next plunge is going to be. So I've set up my file so it will be exactly, should be in line. I'm still eyeballing all of this, but it looks like it's going to be in line. And I'm going to be starting my second bevel now. Okay, so I've been doing my bevel over a few days now, and I wasn't able to complete it in all one shot. So a few tips that I can give you guys to when you're using your filing jig to keep, I've been taking my knife on and off to check the bevel when I'm getting close to my finished size for at least the filing. And it's almost about dime thickness right at the edge here. So I think that's about the right thickness to stop for heat treat. And I will probably also be doing a little bit of sanding before I do the heat treat on here. I know that you don't want to bring it to a sharpened edge before a heat treat for the possibility of warping and stuff like that. So I have it just about a dime thickness. But when you're putting your knife back onto your filing jig, I made like 3 lines here just so I could get my plunge line lined up again with this part of my filing jig. So when I go back onto my work, it's just lined up, ready to go. So if you kind of mark your knife and then mark your filing jig with a marker or a pencil, and I also drew out the outline of my knife on top of that, and it will help you line up your plunge line a lot easier, because I was finding that a little bit difficult at the beginning, and then I kind of just thought of this little simple system, and it's worked pretty perfectly. So I'll take the knife off. So anyways, I brought it down to dime thickness there. You can see the light reflecting back, and it's a pretty even bevel all the way through. And I got a pretty damn even bevel on this knife with a filing jig. I'm not gonna lie, this turned out a lot sharper and smoother than I expected. You can see that the tip of this knife, super sharp. So I didn't roll the file over when I was doing the tip. And that bevel turned out pretty good. I mean, there's a few file gouges and stuff like that hopefully will come out with the sandpaper. So now that I'm done filing the bevel of the knife, it's onto the pre-heat treat sanding and also drilling the holes for the handles for the scales and stuff like that. Pre-heat treat sanding on this part and on the blade a little bit on the bevel. And I will also be prepping the G10 and the liners too. And the knife just needs to get cleaned up, touched up with the sandpaper before heat treat, and then we're going to be heat treating it. And then the finishing work will be next. It's turning out pretty decently. I like the look of the knife. It's got a good grip on it, and it looks like the blade is going to be nice. I got a nice sharp tip on there. I did a pretty good job. Didn't roll the tip over, so I'm excited about it. Anyways, this is Dave from BC Bushcraft. Please please subscribe, and until my next knife making video, I hope you guys have a good day, and please check in on that video too.